There now follows a party political broadcast on behalf of the Labour Party.
I think that the real privilege of being strong is the power that it gives you to help people who are not strong. I think the real privilege of being fit and bright and young, strong, is the ability that that gives you to give others a helping hand when they're not strong, when they're old or disabled or poor or in need. And it isn't a sentimental attitude. I think it's a way of proving just what your strength amounts to.
When he became a member of Parliament, his grandfather, Mary's father, said, "That's all very well, my boy, but don't forget that MP means a man of principle."
My father was very funny about it. When I called him and told him I'd been selected for the seat that I have in South Wales, the place where I was living, in the valley in which I grew up, I said, "Westminster next stop, Dad." And he said, "Oh, you don't know." He said, "People are funny."
His father had the physical strength, his mother had the moral strength. In fact, she was quite a religious person.
Oh, yeah.
Being deeply religious. What they call chapel in South Wales. She absolutely radiated this feeling of warmth and care and respect for others.
My mother had a great deal of influence, both because she was a strong and intelligent and very loving woman, but also, of course, because she was a very committed professional. And apart from all the other lessons that she taught me, the one thing that came across very directly is that compassion by itself is a wonderful thing, but it's never enough. Compassion needs to be put into action.
I think of the youngsters I meet. 3, 4, 5 years out of school, never had a job, and they say to me, "Do you think we'll ever get a job?" These are young men and women living in a free country, but they don't feel free. I think of the 55-year-old woman I meet, waiting months to go into hospital for an operation, her whole existence clouded by pain. She is a citizen of a free country, but she doesn't feel free.
Both of my parents died at the back end of November and December of 1971, within a few days of each other. That was a shattering experience. But I had this immense good fortune of having Glenys and Stephen, who was then nearly 2 years old, and Rachel was born a week after my mother died. And as human beings do, you have to pick it up and get on with it. And I know that my parents' instinct would have been to say, give yourself to the next generation. Think the best things of us and remember us, but get on with life, because life goes on. I'm married to a woman of high intelligence and great independence and immense warmth. And I wouldn't want to be married to anybody who didn't have those qualities. Because I'm fortunate in being married to a woman of independence and of her own views, then people can't understand that that can work in harness, in partnership, in friendship, in deep affection. They assume that one partner is going to dominate the other all the time, which I think is just very immature. I just don't think it makes sense.
My husband and I, who were always very fond of him when he was this lively young backbencher, used to say, well, there's a future leader of the Labour Party. But quite frankly, we thought perhaps he was a bit young to step into it immediately. And of course that was a tremendous liability for him to overcome. People saying he's too young, he hasn't got the experience and so on. He should serve his time in some kind of ministerial office. And he's risen above that. And he's risen above it by his absolute determination not to waver on the policies and not to allow anybody to slap him down, to downgrade him in any way. There's real steel at the heart of that young man.
I'll tell you what happens with impossible promises. You start with far-fetched resolutions. They are then pickled into a rigid dogma, a code. And you go through the years sticking to that, outdated, misplaced, irrelevant to the real needs, and you end in the grotesque chaos of a Labour council hiring taxis to scuttle around a city, handing out redundancy notices to its own workers. I tell you, and you listen, I'm telling you, you can't play politics with people's jobs and with people's services.
When he tackled the question of militant head-on was one of the most superb political performances I've ever seen. It was a very gripping occasion, and it took real guts to put the issue firmly and squarely before the party as he did then.
I think he's very like Gorbachev in the Soviet Union. He's got a nice smile, but he's got steel teeth.
They say that he's young and inexperienced. Well, that was said of William Pitt, you know, when he became Prime Minister in the 18th century at the age of 25. And his reply was, yes, I know, I am young and inexperienced, but it is a fault I am remedying every day.
I think that because of the way in which people of all ages and every social class feel they can approach me, have a chat to me, whether they agree with me or disagree with me, they know they're going to get a straight answer. And that makes it easy for me to be in touch, keep in touch.
Why am I the first Kinnock in 1,000 generations to be able to get to university? Why is Glenys the first woman in her family in 1,000 generations to be able to get to university? Was it because all our predecessors were thick? Did they lack talent? Those people who could sing and play and recite and write poetry? Those people who could make wonderful, beautiful things with their hands? Those people who could dream dreams, see visions? But why didn't they get it? Was it because they were weak? Those people who could work 8 hours underground and then come up and play football? Weak? Those women who could survive 11 childbearings? Were they weak? Does anybody really think that they didn't get what we had because they didn't have the talent or the strength or the endurance or the commitment? Of course not. It was because there was no platform upon which they could stand.
Confidence, that's the objective. People strong and free because they know that they live in a good environment where, should they fall upon difficult times, they're not going to fall upon tragic times. If they should encounter difficulty, they know that it's not going to lock them out of opportunity for the rest of their lives. That's what we're after.
For more information about James Alexander and the Labour Party, please visit www.time-for- change.org.uk.